Welcome back to Cheddar News. Electric jet company Lilium took flight this week when it went public on the Nasdaq, raising $580 million in a SPAC merger with Qell Acquisition Corporation. Lilium is aiming to create a sustainable and accessible mode of high-speed regional transportation using their electric jets, which take off and land vertically. Joining us now is Barry Engle, co-founder and CEO of Qell and a board member at Lilium. Barry, thank you so much for being here. Lilium, we understand, is set to begin commercial flights in 2024. Break down why now was the right reason or the right time for the company to go public, and why do it via SPAC?
Sure, Alicia, it's great to be with you. And why now? Why a SPAC? Well, Lilium is this exciting growth company that is developing, as you indicated, an electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Developing a product like this is an effort that requires a fair amount of capital. And so accessing the capital markets as we have now through the Nasdaq brought in almost $600 million of capital that allows us to continue to progress development of the aircraft, certification of it, manufacturing, as well as the commercial launch of the aircraft. And so this is a really important milestone and an important step forward for the company to allow it to continue to fulfill its mission.
You touched on my next question there in terms of having access to this capital, to your point, close to $600 million. So a nice chunk of change raised there. You know, what does it mean for the company moving forward in terms of growth opportunity and where you plan to utilize that money?
Yeah, again, the real focus is on this aircraft. And you did see in the footage of the video, one of the experimental or the demonstrator aircraft, and we're now on our 5th generation of demonstrator aircraft. The company's been in business for roughly 6 years, and during the course of that period has developed now its 5th generation of aircraft. The production aircraft is the one that we're talking about bringing to market in mid-24, and our focus is really on that aircraft and to continue to develop it. The company has roughly 700 employees, many of whom are engineers that are all focused on this technology and developing the aircraft itself.
We know kind of your background a little bit. You previously served as the president of General Motors in North America. I wonder, first, why did Lilium kind of appeal to you, and how you plan to use and leverage your experience in the transportation sector in this other space, certainly a little bit different from GM?
Sure. So when I formed the SPAC, it was really with the intent of focusing on opportunities in next generation mobility and transportation. It's an exciting space where there's a lot of activity, and that includes not only things with wheels on them, as in the case of General Motors, but well beyond that. And the electrification of transportation is something that's happening right now. It's very interesting, and the technology has evolved to the point where not only can we electrify cars and trucks, but now also aircraft. And so with that, we're able to build out a high-speed regional air network and introduce a whole new mode of transportation. Historically, air transportation would be reserved for longer distances, and we're able now to bring to make accessible, clean, sustainable, and affordable air transportation over shorter distances. It still would, if you were to drive in a vehicle, would represent a fairly long, boring car ride, and we can replace that now with air transport.
You know, we've seen a bit of this trend before, and certainly there is more tailwind behind the electrification of cars and certainly even in the airspace realm. We've seen helicopter startups that wanted to be kind of the Uber of the skies. It really kind of fizzled out. What's your take on terms of Lilium being different in this space? And I guess insight in what kind of demand you are seeing. Again, this doesn't roll out to 2024, but even right now, what demand you're seeing in the tailwinds going into that timeline?
Yeah. So a couple of things when you think about Lilium as opposed to other efforts. This is not an on-demand taxi service that takes people from one side of town to the other, but rather, as I said earlier, a high-speed regional air transportation network that allows you to connect one city to another. The aircraft itself, the design of it, the technology, is intended to be able to go longer distances, longer ranges. And we believe that with those longer ranges, we can save people not minutes, but rather hours of time. And for that, recognizing that it's sustainable, we see great demand. What we see in cities around the world is ever more congestion, and people are becoming ever more concerned about the environmental issues. And so this is an absolutely clean, sustainable mode of transportation. And in terms of what we're seeing in actual demand, we're pleased to be able to announce recently an alliance with Azul, a leading Brazilian air carrier. Turns out that Brazil is the largest helicopter market in the world, and this is it's a great place to deploy a technology like this. Azul is very innovative, a disruptor, and so we're really proud to partner up with Azul.
Yeah.
And as part of that, we announced their intention to buy 220 aircraft, $1 billion of aircraft. And frankly, as when we made the announcement, they indicated then they see this as a first step, and that the actual market is considerably bigger. But I offer that to your question as simply, one demonstration of the kind of demand that we're seeing, and we believe, again, going to the fact that cities globally are experiencing incredible congestion and pollution. This is a solution that we can apply around the world.
Lastly here really quickly, when I think about faster modes of transportation, my mind goes to the 1970s when we kind of had a similar aircraft. Obviously, it was not electrified, but profitability was the struggle there. Do you think the electrification and a higher speed aircraft is the key to profitability? Is that kind of what your aim is and differentiator here from what we saw in the 70s that fizzled out because of the issue with just how costly it was to go at that faster speed?
Yeah, I think what you're alluding to are some efforts in the past around helicopters and helicopter networks. And there are several issues with traditional helicopters. Number one, they're really noisy. And so the beauty of an electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft is you can operate these from the city center. And because they're so quiet, it won't disturb the neighborhoods and the people, and allows you to operate right there in the city center. You don't need to lose time traveling to an airport, which generally is outside of town, and it's there because you need a runway, and it's loud, it's noisy. So we don't have that problem, and we can operate conveniently from the city center. The other issue with helicopters is they're relatively expensive to maintain and to operate with the fuel, et cetera. And the electric becomes way easier to maintain, way lower cost, and because in our case, there's 36 relatively small electric motors, we have great redundancy, and we eliminate some of the safety concerns that you see with helicopters.
Well, listen, 2024 is when you guys plan to, take off with these rides. Make sure to put us on your calendar to come back here. Let us know how that ride goes. Maybe we even send a crew down to that first trip. Thank you so much for being here, Barry Engle, co-founder and CEO of Qell and a board member, of course, at Lilium.